What's up, everybody? I'm Avatage, and welcome to another episode of the HLTB podcast, where today we are talking game music and music we love and music that Paula has experienced recently, along with our usual beaten and retired and playing. But of course, I am joined by Pokepaw, aka Paula.
Hello.
And we've got through a few different games this week, and there's some interesting things that I'm interested to hear about. But unfortunately, I mean, Paula, you haven't completed anything this week, so I'm very disappointed.
I kind of been in hell in the last couple of weeks, so forgive me. Also, I was about to complete a game, but a recording time came early, so there's that.
That's all right. That's all right. I've got a few short games that I've smashed through in the last week, which I can go over. One in particular I want to talk about, but the rest kind of, well, they're short and could be expected. But yeah. So ages ago, I started playing the Wallace and Gromit Grand Adventure series of episodes. I think there's like 4 episodes in the game. They were given away free on Amazon Prime, which is why I had them. But I like Wallace and Gromit anyway as a series, like a TV series and movies and stuff. So I thought, hey, I'm going to play these games because they're just basically Telltale Wallace and Gromit games is the easiest way to describe them. They're exactly what you expect from that description. And they're really good. So I already have finished the first episode in which there are basically killer bees attacking Wallace and Gromit's house, and you have to point and click and solve puzzles to get rid of them and make honey and everything bee related. But this week I played Wallace and Gromit episode 2, The Last Resort, and Wallace and Gromit episode 3, Muzzled. So episode 2, The Last Resort, is where for some reason, oh, that's right, it's raining outside, so Wallace and Gromit decide to set up a holiday destination in their basement where they make like a fake beach and flood it a little to have somewhere for people to swim. And there's like deck chairs and fairy floss machines and the like. So basically the entire town that was in the first game are all in their house. And in this episode you play as Wallace, whereas in the first episode you played a lot as Wallace and Gromit. But this one you only play as Wallace, and you basically have to solve everyone's issues and make sure they have a great holiday in your basement by, solving their problems and that sort of thing, because they're all weird and wonderful characters. And yeah, in Muzzled, the next one you play as Gromit, because there's a fair that's come to town and the local dog shelter has burned down, I think. So there are like stray dogs around that you need to rescue, and there's a guy who shows up who's like, hey, I'm going to throw this fair and we're going to raise money for a new dog shelter. But he may or may not have nefarious intentions. But Wallace has invented a ice cream machine where you can basically let it smell any flavor and it will make an ice cream of that flavor. So that happens a lot during the game to get things to do. So, for instance, the cop in the town, there's an achievement for basically giving him an upset stomach, where you basically get every type of ice cream you can think of and give it to him, and he's really keen and he eats them all.
Oh no.
And so there's like, meat pie flavored ice cream and birdseed flavored ice cream and just a whole lot of random stuff that you can find and turn into ice cream. But yeah, these games are great. They're not very long. They're only like a couple of hours each, if that. But they've got lots. It's very Wallace and Gromit. It's lots of the same sort of characters, and it's very point and clicky Telltale. So the gameplay is fairly solid. I quite like that kind of gameplay, and the stories are always fun. And I think I've got one episode left before I finish the collection. So looking forward to that. Another one I finished, which was nowhere near as enjoyable, was Need for Speed The Run, which I spoke about previously, but it was mercifully short, I will say. As in, I was glad that it finished when it did, because it didn't get much better from my first impressions, where it's just the stories in Need for Speed games are terrible. and the driving is very arcadey and kind of fun, but in this game in particular, it wasn't very much fun because it was just all a bit. It's kind of like because they weren't doing like tracks or there wasn't like big police chases or anything like there have been in other games. There are police and stuff, but it's just nowhere near as exciting. It's just kind of boring. You're driving from point to point all the time, and that's it. And they even reuse certain stages a couple of times for I don't know why, because you're meant to be traveling across America. But somehow you end up driving on the same road more than once because they just didn't want to make another road, which is weird for a big Need for Speed game. But that's okay. The car selection is even kind of limited because there's a handful of like different Porsches and BMWs and Lamborghinis and some Mustangs, but that's about it. You only get to choose a car maybe 3 times throughout the whole game, because they're the times where you basically get wrecked and you have to actually choose a new car in the story. You can swap cars mid section, but you have to kind of mid race go into a gas station, and then you can choose a different car and like continue the race. But that kind of like you kind of forget and you drive past the gas station. You're like, oh, there goes my chance for the next 5 races. I'm stuck with this same car now. And the story is just balls. So Need for Speed: The Run. Don't recommend it, but
As in very
it's pretty bad. and
oh my god.
And like part of Need for Speed, like part of what's so much fun about it, even though it is super arcadey, is the ridiculous like car chases and having the cops on you and like, you know, sideswiping them and taking them out and making them crash and using things like EMP bombs and stuff to kind of scramble their circuits. And, you know, or you can play as the cops and you can like deploy spike strips and stuff to like take out races and things. That stuff's really fun, but none of that is in this game. There are sections where you do get chased by the cops, but to take them out, you basically have to lose the race because it takes that long or that many times of bashing into them to actually take them out that you just kind of lose the race and have to start again anyway. So the whole game is kind of driving you to just ignore the whole cop chase thing, try and stay away from them and just win. And that's that. And it's kind of boring. So I feel like I've already talked about it way too much because it wasn't that good. But anyway, looks good. I spoke about last week as well. This is the little to the left kind of similar game. I finished what is there. A little bit disappointing because there wasn't heaps of stuff to do. Well, there wasn't enough stuff to do, I'd say. I wanted it to be a little bit longer and have some more content. It seemed that just felt a little bit shy of satisfying. But what is there is good. There's a good range of different puzzles and different art styles and stuff like I spoke about before as well, where there's lots of different, there's a handful of different artists who have worked on sections themselves and like sets of puzzles. So that's fun. But as far as the actual puzzles themselves and the amount, it's a little bit disappointing because there's nothing that really surprised me or stood out. If you've played something like A Little to the Left, you've played this game. It just kind of looks different and there are some different ideas in there. So it looks good. It's good, but it's not great. I'd sooner go play Little to the Left, actually, because they even have a daily challenge, which you can keep playing if you really want to, if you want some more content. Then I also played Rusty Lake Hotel. I finished it. I had started it last week, but I finished it this week. Still loved it. It was great. It was fantastic. Yeah, still fucked up. Still,
Yeah, of course.
still like satisfyingly disturbing. Like I really like the parts where it surprises you still on how something can happen and you're like, whoa, I really wasn't expecting that. And it can be really messed up and strange, but yeah, really good. I liked playing this one as well, as I suspected in the first time I spoke about it, where this as a bigger kind of standalone game compared to the Cube Escape collection games has more of a kind of story that you can follow through and more of a theme that kind of goes through that I guess, can be developed a bit more because it's a little bit bigger than the other games, but it's still kind of the same thing, and and it's dark. It's dark in areas, but really good. Yeah, Rusty Lake Hotel. I'm really excited. I think the next ones I've got to play on the list are Cube Escape games, but then let's have a look. Yeah, it's Cube Escape Birthday and Cube Escape Theatre I have next, and then it's on to Rusty Lake Roots. So I'm excited getting into more of the non-Cube Escape games in the series, which I still like the Cube Escape ones. They're just obviously smaller and, quicker to get through. So I like having the big games with more to explore. But yeah, Rusty Lake Hotel, very good. Loved it.
Cube Escape Birthday is interesting to say the least.
Awesome. I expect them all to be a little bit interesting. And if not, very interesting and very cool.
Yeah, but I think Birthday is the one that under me the most. So I want to hear your thoughts on that one.
I might save it for a daytime playthrough then, where I'm not going to get freaked out. Just in case. Sometimes I think, I don't want to play a Rusty Lake game before I go to bed and start having dreams about it.
Well, that is a terrible idea. I say it from experience.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that'll be the next one though. Another game I started and finished this week was Jusant, I believe you should say it. It's the new one from Don't Nod. I've mentioned it before. I played the demo during our Steam Next Fest demo journeys. Don't Nod, of course, being the mob who did Life is Strange. Thankfully, it's nothing like Life is Strange, because Life is Strange kind of shat me after a while. But I much prefer this game. But the title Jusant means I found out because the game tells you it's a receding tide. And that's kind of the theme throughout the entire game, because you start off on what is essentially ground level, where it's a big desert, but in the middle there's a huge stone pillar kind of mountain, which you start climbing up. And as you keep climbing, you basically, from the start of the game to the end of the game, you climb from the bottom right up to the top. And that's no spoiler, because that's literally what you're doing the whole game. So mechanically, it's a rock climbing game essentially. And the way they've done it with the controls and everything is actually really satisfying, because each of your triggers on the gamepad kind of act as your hands. So you can push up with your analog stick, and then you press right trigger and your right hand will reach up and grab something. And then while you're holding onto that, you can let go of your left hand and put your left hand up and grab something, and so on and so forth. You end up climbing up. But then you can drive, I think they're called pitons, into the rock as well, which are anchors for your rope, because you've always got a rope that's attached to something. And that kind of can anchor you in a certain spot. So you can either hang off it and kind of swing side to side if you want, or you can use it as a safety net in case you have to do a jump that you might miss. And then if you do miss it, you'll get caught by that anchor point and you won't fall all the way back down. There are other areas later on where you are literally swinging ropes across huge caverns, and the walls and the what are they, the holds and the bits that you grab onto on the walls of this mountain. Sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're plants, which you kind of activate, and it sprouts roots and things that you can grab onto. But then if it's in the sun, maybe they'll go away after a short time, so you have to kind of move it. Sometimes there are these little bugs that have kind of rocky carapaces on them, so they're moving across the rock. So you can grab it and hold on while it kind of moves across the rock. And yeah, there's lots of different ways that you basically can climb up this mountain. And so mechanically it's interesting and challenging in areas, because you do have to sometimes figure out which way you're going to get up, because you've only got a limited amount of rope before you run out of rope and can't go anywhere further. You've only got a limited amount of stamina. So I didn't ever run out of stamina, but I got close a couple of times. and different things affect your stamina. Again, if you're like climbing in direct sunlight, it kind of, you drain your stamina more quickly. Later on, there's a level where there's a bit of wind and stuff that kind of affects you as well. And you can do stuff like, while you're climbing, you can stop and have a rest. So it'll kind of recharge your stamina to a point. But essentially, you're trying to get to the next level bit where you can stand up and wind in your rope and start again kind of thing. And all your stamina recharges and that sort of stuff. And that's it mechanically. But the cool thing is basically the story. And there's no dialogue or anything. There are notes and letters that you find along the way, which are actually really well done, because I feel like I'm not the only gamer who kind of rolls their eyes when a story is told through letters that you find in the environment for no good reason. But this is actually done really well, and it kind of makes sense, the ones that you find. To the point, some of the notes you find are not anything to do with you. They're literally outside someone's house, because throughout the mountain there's like places to live, there's restaurants, there's obviously been a civilization here, and it's all empty now, but there are notes kind of banged to doors saying, you know, I've closed down my restaurant, so I'm out of here. There's no water anyway, because the whole theme is that there was water at one stage, but it's all gone now. And the entire landscape took me a chapter or two to realize, but the entire landscape as you're climbing up this mountain is essentially covered in like different corals and underwater. You kind of don't realize at first because you're not underwater, but after a while, when you get a little bit higher as well and you look out across the landscape, it looks like the bed of an ocean with lots of rocks and stuff, kind of what you'd expect to see underwater, but it's not underwater. And this isn't really spoiler because you figure it out really quickly, but you basically figure out that you're climbing up, and as you climb up, you're kind of going through the past, because this civilization kind of started at the top, but as the water kept going down and the tide kept going out, they kept moving down this mountain basically to follow the water. And so there's, at all levels, there's like wrecked boats and things and fishing nets and a whole lot of like living next to water paraphernalia. And it's actually really interesting, because the other part of the story is that you're kind of following some other people who went before you, because there's a theory that there are these whale-like creatures that live at the top of the mountain who are just full of water. So, and it's kind of a bit surreal in that sense. So there are some characters who decide we're going to go hunt them and get that water because we're desperate and, you know, we need the water. But there's also one particular character who you follow who isn't really keen on hunting, but she just wants to go and find these creatures anyway and see if they exist and have a bit of an adventure. So you find her notes along the way, which are like her journal entries. And she talks about the other characters and how they're kind of conflicted with hunting things as opposed to trying to solve why all the water went away in the first place. And yeah, it's a bit fantastical and magical along the way, and there are some kind of surreal, unreal stuff. But that's kind of the story that drives you while you're doing all the mountain climbing stuff. And it's really good. I definitely recommend it to anyone who's played the demo and liked it. The rest of the game is just as good. It kind of gave me that same vibe that like Journey gives you, where you're on an adventure and it's not necessarily super challenging. There are parts which are difficult and you can fuck up, but I never fucked up so much that I had to like reload anything. And there were a couple of times where I kind of lost my handhold and kind of ended up swinging away and getting caught by my rope. But you can quickly kind of recover from that kind of thing. And yeah, other than like on the way up, there are lots of alternate paths and places to explore because there's lots of collectibles and things to find. So I missed maybe a third of them all up, I think, in my playthrough, because I kind of looked but wasn't super dedicated, especially on one particular level, which was hard. I just kind of blasted my way through. But it's kind of open worldy in a way as well, because you can kind of anchor yourself at any point. If you decide I want to go see what's over that side of the mountain, you can kind of get as far as you can to an extent, and you can kind of go places that aren't obvious immediately. Like you might be standing on a platform that you came through the mountain to get to, and there's like handholds and stuff to then go up, but you can like anchor yourself and just, let yourself down as well if you want to see what's down there. And yeah, it's just really cool and a really satisfying game. And I think it's probably up there with like the handful of games that are my favorite games that have been released this year that I've played. So that's something.
Also, it is on Game Pass, so for anyone who has Game Pass, just go try it. Barely that goes for me too.
Yeah, that's how I got onto it as well. And it's definitely worth it. It's not that long either. It's I think the average on HLTB is about 4 hours, so it's long enough, but it's not super long.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so long that you can't get through it. Like I got through it this week. I played it over a few days, and yeah, there's like 5 chapters or something in the story. You can go back to each chapter as well to find collectibles if you want. It's not really my jam, but you can do that if you want. But yeah, really good story. Really great way of telling a story as well. Like I love games that can tell you a lot just through the environment, because there is a lot of, you are going through places that used to be where people lived, but there's just no one around anymore. So there's a lot of just seeing all their stuff around and how they lived, and that's kind of interesting. So yeah, that's a good one. I would definitely go check it out. It's one of the highlights this year for me anyway. Other than that, very quickly, I have retired Sea of Stars, which I've spoken about before. Turn-based JRPG type game. It was kind of a matter of time. Really nice though. Really liked the art. Really liked the animations. Really enjoyed what I did play of it, and I played probably about 10 hours. But last time I picked it up the other day, and I started playing it, and I was like, yeah, this is cool. But then I thought, I wonder how much longer I've got. And I looked at the HLTB time, and it's like I've got another 20 hours at least. So I was like, I think I'm done.
That's an RPG for you?
Yeah, and I expected it to be that, but yeah, it's just not. I'm glad I tried it, and I kind of became familiar with it, but I still don't know what the story was. I don't know what was going on there, other than like little side bits. Like there was stuff that happened in my game where one of my party members left. We gained another one. I understood what was happening there and why that happened, but I still wasn't quite sure about the whole, like the meta story. And I'm still not sure. I'll probably look up the Wikipedia page one day just to find out. But yeah, it wasn't really holding me in the way that I wanted it to, and I've got so many other games that I could be playing. So I retired that one. Not because it's bad at all, but just because it wasn't really exciting me. And I do have other things I want to play. So
Such is the way of the backlog.
Exactly. And again, that was on PS Plus, so I find it easier to retire things I haven't directly paid for, even though I have paid for it, but you get what I mean. Like I tried it out because it was there, not because I went and bought it.
True.
But that's enough out of me, because my goodness, I've completed a bit and retired a bit. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Paula, because you have way more currently playing. Seems like you've been having fun based on this list, and I'm very interested to see where it came from.
Yeah, some of this is kind of like out there for me, since I'm not usually into like certain kind of games, but more on that later. So first of all, I'm still playing Via Fiere Episodio 1926 on Switch. I gone through a couple more chapters, and I'm on on the final chapter for Gilbert's route in this game. Sorry.
Yep.
And everything is going to shit right now. So let's see how many characters are alive after this route, because oh my god, I feel like there's gonna be some bloodshed over here. And also a friend that is also playing the game kind of spoiled me, like probably half of them are dead, but I don't know who is dead at the end of the route, so it's gonna be interesting. I don't kind of expected it, so I don't know. Nothing of note to say just yet, except that the opening sequence of the game is completely fire because there's two of my favorite, I guess, singers for Otome games in this one, so that's always a plus. The other game that I've been playing, this one is kind of weird for me because I don't usually play FIFA. So I was taking care of my nephew this weekend. It turned out he wanted to play FIFA with me. He was like, "Hey, have you ever played this?" No, no, not never in my fucking life have I grabbed a controller and play FIFA. So he kind of like taught me how to play a little bit. I still think I defended myself pretty well, given that he said that the team that I chose was shit. He actually went with a decent team, which is one of the things that I don't really understand about FIFA. Is like the teams are clearly unbalanced.
Yep.
And it's like, why would you ever pick a team over a certain other team when it gives you like such big of an advantage? So
That's sports, baby.
I mean, yeah, but still, um, I think they're like probably like balanced according to like win rates and shit like that from like the real games or something. But it is a game. You could go and make it even more fun, and people will actually pick like the team they really want to play as. So instead of, I don't know, the one that has Messi or whatever.
See, as someone who has a lot of friends who play FIFA religiously and that's it, I can tell you they will play the team that they support no matter how good or bad that team is. And they want it to be the same team that they support.
Okay. So there's that. But still, it's kind of like, I don't know. It's like you're playing on hard mode in a way. I guess that's the way of making things more difficult for you, and like having more of a challenge. Which, by the way, it was kind of like strategy game mixed with sports. I don't fully understand football slash soccer, however you want to call it. Mainly because of how, I don't know. I like some sports like basketball. I like the more speedy sports where things happen at every turn. So soccer for me is kind of like a snooze fest because most of the time, at least in the matches that I watch, they're like tied at 0 and sometimes they score a goal and then that's pretty much it for the entirety of the match. But also it seems like there's rules about like you can pass the ball to depending on where you are on the field, which is kind of like why, but okay.
Yep.
I don't know. Soccer is a weird beast for me. So at some points I was like my nephew like literally was almost scoring a goal, and then it says like, oh no, there's a fault or something. I'm like, wait, what happened? And he says, oh no, so and so was like too forward in the field or something like that. I'm like, okay, whatever. I don't know, man. I like between not fully understanding the rules of soccer on that regard, like the fact that swapping sometimes swapping the player to like the one you want to actually move and try to either like take the lead with the ball or like try to snatch the ball out of the other players is more difficult than I thought it would be. Like it has like a command to automatically select the player that is closer to the football, but you can also like move I guess the cursor or like select individual players like with the right stick of the controller, and that is another whole mess that I don't want to get into.
Yep.
And also there's like different ways you can pass the ball. Like you can just kick it like at ground level, make it like jump a little bit, make it fucking fly through the sky. And I don't know what I was doing, but even when I was using the button to kick it at ground level, it sometimes just flew through the sky to the other side of the field and out of the field. And I'm like, okay. I guess I have to control the strength because there's like a little bar to control the strength on which you can kick the ball. So yeah, I don't dislike it. Even though I rant on and on about it. Would I play it again on my own? No way in hell. But I guess if I get invited into someone's house and the only thing they want to play is FIFA, I guess I can make an exception for them. So yeah, hopefully the only time you hear me talk about FIFA in a long, long time.
Awesome.
The other multiplayer game, or in this case party game, that I actually enjoyed this week was Jackbox Party Pack 6. So what happened is that I'm currently working on some code and my computer doesn't have enough RAM. So I kind of like connected my computer to my boyfriend's like through VS Code so I can run code from his computer, which is a monster. And the thing is that there was a problem. I got disconnected or something and I was like, okay, I'm gonna ask my boyfriend to fix this. Keep in mind, I was still at my sister's house at that time, so I had to jump on Discord because he wasn't like picking up. And I was like, oh, I see, he's playing like with the group of friends we have in common. So I went into the Discord, and suddenly everyone was like, hey, we have an extra player, let's play. And I'm like, what? Okay, Paula, go to jackbox.tv and introduce this code and we'll play something to get in. And I just got dragged into playing Jackbox with everyone.
Nice.
Which was kind of funny because at the end, like after a couple of hours, I was like, hey, I actually just wanted to ask a question. I don't know how I ended up playing Jackbox, but okay. Everyone laughed. So we played 2 games. The first one being Quiplash. And usually like on Quiplash, like each couple of players will get like a couple of prompts. And then they compare prompts and the other players decides which one is funnier.
Yep.
And after like round 3, like everyone gets the same question and and everyone has to respond, and then you score them points depending on how funny they think they are. I usually suck at this because my humor is kind of weird. But it was still a lot of fun. The one that I like the most, though, is Push the Button. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun because I think it's depending on the amount of players, the amount of audience you get, but you're supposed to be like a crew on a spaceship. There are some aliens that have infiltrated the ship and they're among us. But instead of Among Us, like in Among Us, you have to, as an imposter, try to kill the others without the rest of the players like noticing you and stuff like that, and then you get to defend yourself with words. You could either be the biggest player of Among and manage to find your way through the game and be alive at the end of the game, or you are either terrible at lying or terrible at killing, and people already know who you are and get you out of the ship. Here, though, in Push the Button, we were like 8, I think. So we had 3 aliens among us. And the thing is that each round you get like a player to pick 3, in this case 3 other players, and put them through a little test. The funny thing is that humans will get 1 prompt, but aliens will get a slightly different prompt. So first we play the tutorial. So in the first like couple of rounds, we were like fairly sure like a couple of people were aliens, and we were just looking for the third one. There are like some extra tests, like you're able to I forget the name of this, but one was about the like you give a drawing prompt to 3 people, and they have to draw something based on the prompt. If it looks weird, maybe they're an alien. The other one was the writing prompt, where each are given like a prompt, so they write something. Then you have, I forgot the name of it, but it's more like, hey, do you agree with this statement? You have like 5 options, and that one in particular is more dependent on how well you know the other people. And then you have the other part where you're given like a thing to share your opinions on. And then you have the scanner, and the scanner allows you to actually check if someone is an alien or not. The problem is one person has to describe a set of symbols to a couple of their people, and they have to select the symbols correctly from a bunch of tiles. But none of the people who are selecting the tiles can be wrong. Otherwise, you fail the scan, you fail the test, and you can't scan anyway for save your life. But also, you depend on the person who is describing the darn thing, because if they suck at it, if they're alien, you're fucked. There's no other way around it. Finally, you have like a certain amount of time to try to find the aliens. If you are sure of who the aliens are, you can press that button and make select the people you think are aliens, and make the rest of the crew vote on whether they think they're aliens or not. If the vote is unanimous, they get thrown out of the ship and the game is over.
Nice.
If not, if just one person disagrees, well, you're fucked, because they're not gonna throw anyone out of the ship without being like completely not sure, but everyone thinks the same at the very least. So in the tutorial level, like at round 2 or 3, I don't know, they introduce hacking, so aliens can hack the other players. Either they can hack aliens to receive a human prompt, or humans to receive the alien prompt. And the thing is, I didn't know at first that it was only in the tutorial level that you were given like all the tools like one by one. So when we played the second round, I got a prompt and drew according to that prompt, and then realized the prompt was another. So at some point I was like, hey, am I an alien and I didn't read it correctly when they give me a roll? And then I realized, no, they are able to hack everyone like from the very start. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. Friendships were broken in the process. Like on the first round, we were like completely sure about 2 of the aliens, and the third one we were like a bit iffy about. But the best part was when someone actually commented, hey, so-and-so is kind of quiet. I don't trust them. And no one else thought it was weird, and we didn't throw him out of the ship, and it turns out he was an alien. And then on the next round, we realized why that person said, hey, so-and-so is very quiet, because, oh my God, they talk they talk so much when they aren't the aliens. So it was like, okay, I now get what you were like kind of sus about them. But anyway, Jack's Party Pack they especially push the button. I totally recommend that if you have a group of friends, especially if it's a big group of friends, because the more people there, the more chaotic the thing ends up being. Yeah, I tried to play Project Sunblade by my own,
Cool.
and that didn't go well. So first of all, I had to like reload the game a couple of times because I don't know how like the controls changed and everything I knew was no longer useful. So I had to reload the game until I managed to make the control make sense to things I previously learned on my zombie adventures. And once I was comfortable with the controller, I started like in a house by my lonesome. I collected everything that I thought was useful. I was ready for action. I have a weapon, and I wanted to make my character like crouch to be like less visible to the zombies. And actually, my character had an ability that made them more stealthy.
Mhm.
All of that got thrown out of the window when I pressed a button, or like press a key thinking it was to crouch. And allow me to rant a little bit. Who the fuck thought it was a good idea to have a prompt to call to other people when you're playing solo?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna crouch. And I pressed the key that was used to call to the other players or to make noise. And every zombie in the neighborhood and their mother just grabbed my character and mauled it to death. Because of course, I thought it was a great idea to make my character a pacifist and hustle around. So that means that their weapon use was shit. They landed less hits, so they ended up dead. And to be honest, they deserve it because who the fuck would try to call for their friends when they're the only human left on the zombie-ridden world?
Wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, it wasn't meant to be. It wasn't. They were like the sharpest tool in the shed. So yeah. After that, I decided not to play by myself. And better have like more people with me in case I fucked up, so they can suffer my fucked ups with me.
Nice.
The last game that I've been playing, and this one, I think this one is the one I made the most progress, like relatively to the length of the game, and it is quarantine circular.
Mm-hmm.
So a while ago, I played Subsurface Circular, and I love it. And in Quarantine Circular, they have like a similar chat system, but you're no longer talking with text, and you're no longer a tech. Well, you actually don't play as a single character. Like you are on each sequence, depending on how the story goes. You are in a different point of view in this ship, and you get to make decisions as different characters. There's a couple of things that are kind of new to this, like the way you interact with other people kind of like remains.
Mm-hmm.
It's still like a chat log, and you are able to look back at the chat log and make your decisions and like by selecting a prompt and stuff like that. But you have like these, like each character, or like depending on the situation, some of the characters we get like an extra meter, or like an extra stat.
Mm-hmm.
Like how much this character trusts you, or like how much patience this character has before you ask too many questions and they're like fed up with you and send you out in your merry way and stuff like that. So I guess it kind of like gives you Okay, this is kind of interesting because I feel like some of the characters in Subsurface Nuclear kind of had that in the first place, but it was hidden, or more
Yeah.
like, yeah, or more like they had like less options to get to that point. So it was more like, hey, complete this conversation from A to B, and you unlock the next conversation. In this case, you have like multiple ways to achieve a goal in particular. So that's why they give you like this meter instead of just saying go from A to B. Which is interesting because I feel that while in Subsurface Circular, you only had a couple of big choices to make like near the end of the game. In this game, you have a more personalized run or customized run based on the choices that you make. Like, not gonna spoil the thing, but I made a choice like really, really early in the game, and it came back to beat my ass. Like, I was like at the end of the game, so that
Cool.
was like more interesting. So I feel like depending on how things go in this first playthrough, I might do a second one just to see how my decisions affect the thing at the end. But yeah, um, I was very happy to actually have picked this one up, and I'm very happy to be playing it. I'm
Nice.
currently on the 7th sequence. I think I'm nearly the end of the game. So yeah.
Yeah, it's not that long if I remember correctly.
No, I don't think it is. I think it's like a couple of hours if you're just playing for completion's sake, and like 3 hours if you do a rerun to get like all the achievements.
Yeah. Good game though, yeah. I agree.
So yeah, that's all the games that I've been playing. You have a couple more games to talk about, so take it away.
Yep.
Patrick.
I went and picked up the latest Assassin's Creed game because I've been meaning to, because I love Assassin's Creed, obviously, and Assassin's Creed Mirage is the latest one that came out this year. I haven't seen anything about it because knowing that I'd play it eventually, I just kind of ignore everything about it. Other than hearing that it's not a total trash fire. So, if it came out and everyone was like, this is the worst game ever made, then maybe I would have avoided it. But other than that, I knew I was going to play it eventually. So I did. I started playing it. And I'm about 5 hours in or so. So in the grand scheme of Assassin's Creed games, that's not a lot, but it's enough to kind of get past the tutorial, past the title card, and kind of get into the open worldness of it all. Because most Assassin's Creed games, if anyone's played one, will have like an intro that kind of holds your hand and tells you what to do and limits where you can go. But then once you've got through that, it's open world time and you can do whatever you want. And, within reason, obviously. So this one is, the other reason why I was interested in it was because they've left behind the new formula that they were doing in Origins and Odyssey and Valhalla, which was Origins and Odyssey I really liked, but Valhalla was way too bloated. It was just too big without it seeming worth it. Lots of filler, not all killer. As much as I really enjoyed that game, it was just too much. I could have done with it being half as big and half as long. Because, it was a little bit over the top. And not really, like I say, there wasn't really a payoff to balance it out. So with this one, in Mirage, they basically, the map is much, much smaller. It's set in and around the city of Baghdad. Obviously, back in the day, though, this is like way back in history, as they are. You play as a character who was in Valhalla. This isn't directly from Valhalla, but there was basically an Arab assassin in Valhalla who you play as their origin story, essentially, in this game. And in Valhalla, they were a well-accomplished assassin, and it was much later in their life and that kind of thing, whereas this one, the very start of the game is basically you are a thief in Baghdad, or not in Baghdad, actually, just outside of Baghdad. And you eventually steal something that the assassins are interested in, and you end up becoming one of them. And, that's your journey starts as an assassin. The things I like about it are that it seems to have also tapped back into the parkour system that kind of made Assassin's Creed famous, and especially in the second game where they expanded it a bit, where in the first game you could like run up walls and over rooftops and stuff, but in the second game they added in a lot of stuff where you could grab onto a hanging plant and that would swing you around a corner while you're running, and you could hit like a pulley thing that would like pull you up onto the roof really quickly. Different systems like that. Later on, they added other stuff, which was like grappling hooks and things, which just made it ridiculous. But they haven't got to that yet in this one, so I'm hoping they kind of avoid that stuff, because it made it seem like you're in more of a playground than an actual real city, which is what I like about these games, is the realism of it, even though they're very unreal, but you get what I mean. I like that it's kind of grounded, and I like that, and I love that the cities feel real, even though the things you're doing in them is quite fantastical. So far it feels good because the combat system is more involved. It's definitely more of a third-person action combat system as opposed to previous games where you can parry enemy attacks, you can do light and strong attacks, you can do different combos. There are unblockable attacks, so you got to dodge out the way. You've got different weapons and stuff that you can change out and use in combat as well. So it's definitely a much more involved combat system than I think even in the last couple of games. And that's always a welcome thing, because even last week I was talking about the very first game, which I love, but the combat system in that is abysmal, and it's very much counter and win. Much like the Arkham games as well. Like when you just wait till you can counter someone, then just keep pressing counter and you win. So this takes a little bit more thought though. There's still the similar systems, as in the map is 100% open and you have mounts and stuff to get around. The one thing I didn't like was there's a whole tutorial where you're kind of at the assassin camp, and the assassin camp is a location that isn't on the main map. So you don't actually travel there directly. It's a cutscene and it loads, which I know is a weird thing to complain about. But part of the joy of Assassin's Creed games is the seamless world that you can travel through. Like you could never see a loading screen and still get everywhere, basically. There are a few exceptions to that, but essentially if you want to go somewhere, you can just walk there and never be stopped, kind of thing. So that was kind of a bit annoying, because I completed the tutorial and they're all like, off to Baghdad we go. And then I got this like montage cutscene and obviously it loaded the level and then it just dumped me in the middle of the desert, and there you go. And even in the first game, you could travel directly between cities, and there was like a whole no man's land in between each city where even that was a part of the map that had things you could do and that sort of stuff. So I was a little bit disappointed about that. But having said that, now that I'm in the main map, there is only one map, and it is, or as far as I know, and it is, while it's dense and there's a whole city worth of stuff to do, and then outskirts with desert and little towns and stuff, it's still quite contained, and it seems much more focused than the previous games or the recent games. So again, I'm happy about that. I haven't really kicked off the main story yet, because again, I loaded into the desert in Baghdad and they're like, go that way to the city. So I turned around and went the other way and, found an oasis and discovered some weird chests underwater and stuff, just did some exploring elsewhere, because that's the way I approach these games is when there's a marker telling me to go one way, I'll go every other way first. So that was fun, because even there was some dynamic stuff that happened while I was doing that. Like I was going through this abandoned or seemingly abandoned workers camp, and it was at an oasis. So there was like a little lake and I dived in, and I'm like diving around in the lake, looking at stuff and collecting treasures and things. But by the time I came up, there were a couple of bandits who'd showed up, but they're fighting like some sort of, not a tiger, but some other kind of wild cat, and they're having their own little fight on the side of the oasis. And I'm like, okay. So I jump in and kill them, of course, and steal all their shit. But that was just like some seemingly random thing that happened. It was probably scripted or whatever, but the way it was done was really good. It felt very natural and like I just stumbled upon this thing happening. So yeah, as an Assassin's Creed fan, I'm very excited to continue. The criticisms I have for it at the moment are that two things mostly. The writing is not very strong. It's not terrible, but it's not great. At least for the intro, because there's a lot of just people saying things because you need to be told it in the intro, not because it's natural to say. And that kind of stuff always feels a bit weird. Like, it's not necessarily bad, but it's not good either. So I'm hoping the writing will improve. The other thing that I always notice in Assassin's Creed games is how they change the parkour system, because basically every single game has developed it one way or another, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. And around Assassin's Creed Unity and Syndicate, they basically nailed the system quite well, because they brought in an option where if you're running, so you're not just walking along, but you're running, you can then hold a button to basically say, I want to go up, or you hold a button to say, I want to go down. And that's how you control it. And it seems really simple, but it's actually really intuitive and works a lot better than the previous systems. So you can basically just run at a wall, say, I want to run up this wall, and your dude will clamber his way up. Similarly, if you're running across rooftops, you go, actually, I want to go down now. So you press the down button, and instead of running over the roofs, they'll find a gap and drop down and kind of climb their way down the wall as well. In Origins, this is where I'm an Assassin's Creed nerd and I'm going to get picky. In Origins, it was awesome because you could literally climb anything, anywhere. If there was the side of a mountain, you could just climb up it. And your dude it would look real as well. Like, you'd find handholds and stuff, and the animations were great. And you could go up just anything you saw, you could climb. And that was a lot of fun and really cool. And I really enjoyed that. In later games, they kind of kept it the same, but they kind of limited a bit. Like, there were some places you couldn't climb. In this game, there are definitely places you can't climb. Like, it's definitely not as open as it was in Origins. And that kind of annoys me a little bit, only because half the fun of Assassin's Creed games is climbing over everything. Like, that's what you're doing 99% of the time, is running around over rooftops and things. So
Yep.
It's fun when you can just go anywhere and do anything and not really give a shit. So being restricted in that way, like, there's a few times where I'm like running along through the city and I hit a particular type of wall and my dude's just like, I can't get up that. And I'm like, come on, man. Like, yeah, you can. You're an assassin. This is what you do. Like, this is your whole thing. Whereas in previous games, he would have just scrambled his way up there, and it might have been a little bit unrealistic, but whatever, it was cool anyway. This one seems a little bit limited, but again, we'll see. I've only just scratched the surface, really. So when I get into the actual game proper, the other thing I'm hoping for, which again they haven't really done since the first couple of games, is just really cool assassinations where you've got a very clear target that you have to kind of calculate and strategize about, and then kind of get your way in, often against bad odds, and kind of sneak up behind him and assassinate him, kind of thing. Those were really, really satisfying in the original games. In later games, it got a bit more just fight all these dudes, and one of them is the boss, and when you kill him, he's dead.
When you kill him, he's dead.
Pretty much. And, that's fun and everything, but I like the whole sneak up to them, don't let, there's guards everywhere, and it's usually in public, like hidden in plain sight kind of thing, and you're in the crowd, and you manage to sneak up and like stab him in the back, and he's like, oh my god, I didn't even see you coming. And then after he's dead, everyone's onto you and you've got to run away and fight heaps of dudes. But the whole lead up is very stealthy and just a surprise. So, fingers crossed it's more like that. I haven't actually obviously taken out any important dudes yet. But I'm very keen to play that over the next few months, essentially, because it's going to take a while. The other game that I've been playing again, which I've mentioned before, is Cocoon, which I haven't finished yet. But again, this is another game that's like one of the best times I've had this year from a new game. It continues to blow my little mind. I'm not going to try and explain it any more than I have previously because I can't. It's still very confusing. I mean, it makes sense conceptually once you're playing it, but I've talked about how there's like different orbs and each orb is like its own little world and you can go in and out of different orbs with other orbs. So you can like put worlds inside worlds and then go outside of other worlds and carry multiple worlds around. And that was with 3 orbs. I've just unlocked another one. So I'm up to 4 and there could be more. I don't know because I haven't looked ahead, but it's still very, very cool and a lot of fun. And the soundtrack is amazing. It's very much an ambient kind of atmospheric thing as opposed to music. And the sound effects and the design, and it's just, chef kiss good kind of game. And I'm probably going to hopefully finish that before we next record because I want to finish it soon because it's just really cool and I want to see how it all ends. So Cocoon is still good. Again, it's up there for game of the year for me, really, with a few others that I've played so far. But that does me for now. Let us leave those big lists of games we've been playing and beaten and whatnot and discuss game music that we love. And part of the reason we're discussing this, good listener, is because Paula told me the other day or yesterday or sometime that she recently went to a live performance of, was it game music or like from a particular game or just in general kind of stuff?
Kind of like in general, but half of it was like Nintendo stuff because for your information, here in TLA we don't usually have game music like in theaters and stuff. So this was actually like the first time ever in the municipal theater in Santiago we've had game music being played there. So it was quite the time. I have no idea how we got the entries for the event at the time we did because we actually bought it like a couple of days before the event. But it seems like the marketing team wasn't doing their job and only one of the big news outlet covered it, and it was like on a newspaper, and who buys those anymore? So at the end of the day, we realized this was happening because of a post on Instagram, like a reel on Instagram, however you want to call it.
Yep.
And it was so good. Like, as I said, like half of music was Nintendo music, mainly because of how at the very least, like, I feel like when most people think about like the video games here, they're usually thinking about Nintendo. Like, if you like up until like 10 years ago, if someone was talking about a video game console and like someone who wasn't like really in the know asked you about it, and they were probably like, "Oh, so you're playing on a Nintendo or something like that."
Yep.
So actually, let me pull the program real quick because we actually had Pokemon music, like a Pokemon medley, which, by the way, I feel like most of the music was pulled from the original Game Boy games.
Mm-hmm.
They had some sprinkles of what I think were the Pokemon Stadium version of some of the songs. They ended up with actually music from the anime, so I feel that was a little bit cheating, but anyway. We also have, for some strange reason, like the main theme from Super Mario Galaxy 2.
Cool.
We had Dosana Khan from Final Fantasy X. And in some of the numbers, we actually had like a little like ballet thing to go with it, so it was kind of nice.
Cool.
Then we had the main theme for Super Smash Bros. Brawl, and that was beautiful done. We had an Undertale medley.
How appropriate.
Yeah, and it was, and this was one another one that was like accompanied by a ballet dance.
Mm-hmm.
And like I really like the performance, and I actually understand why some of the character costumes has to be like adapted to something that a person dancing ballet would actually be able to move on. But some were kind of uncanny, not gonna lie. And we also had, do you know a game called Jamestown?
Yes, love that soundtrack.
Okay, so it turns out the composer for that game is Chilean. So
yeah, that rings a bell.
We actually have music from that game being played too, and funny enough, like it sounded familiar, even though I've never played the game.
It's a really good soundtrack.
It was actually like really good. We have Into the Dark Sector and The Lost Temple of Kratoa. It was pretty good. And then we had the part of the show that I probably enjoyed the most. We had The Legend of Zelda medley.
Nice.
And of course, they started with the title screen music for Ocarina of Time. It was original, like they started like trying to make it sound like as close as the game as possible, and then they went really out there on with their like the orchestra just had a field day with the Zelda music. So they had the complete the complete music track for the title screen that includes the part that sounds when you leave the game just be, and you have like cutscenes from the game and stuff like that.
Cool.
They went through things like Song of Storms, the Gerudo Town music theme. They went for some, I think it was Twilight Princess. They also went through Dragon Cruise Island from the Wind Waker, and they had like all the versions of Zelda's Lullaby, and it was awesome. So it like, for me, the show itself was worth it just for these like 10 to 15 minutes of just Zelda. We also had the One-Winged Angel from Final Fantasy 17. Sorry, 7, not 17. We haven't got there yet.
Preview.
We had like the I guess the credit song from Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater.
Interesting.
We had a Super Mario Bros. Medley, because of course we had. Then we had the Donkey Kong Country medley.
Another great soundtrack, I will say.
And the show ended up with Jump Up Superstar from Super Mario Odyssey, and I swear the songstress who sang the lyrics of this one was very close to the original soundtrack from Super Mario Odyssey, and it was just such a nice touch to end the show in. And awesome. Even though it was like Nintendo nominated, mainly because I guess most people would recognize different parts and bits of the soundtrack, or at the very least they know the names of the games.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, the like the age demographic of the public was like all over the place. Like they were like very small kids, like I don't know, like 5, 6, or 7 years old.
Yeah.
And I saw like some really old ladies over there and too. So like people from all ages, I think it was more concentrated along like the 20s and 30s. But people from all ages were just enjoying the show. And it was beautiful.
It was a symphony orchestra, wasn't it?
A symphony orchestra, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
So yeah, like I got home and I messaged Josh and I said, I want to talk video game music today or like tomorrow.
Yeah.
So here we are. So yeah.
I'm stoked that they played some Jamestown because that is literally one of my favorite soundtracks ever.
Nice. Actually, where can I play that? Because I've never heard about Jamestown before.
It's on Steam. It's a top-down shooter, basically. Like a bullet hell.
Oh, I could actually play that.
Yeah, it's pretty old as well. I don't know when it came out, but
according to the host of the show, 12 years ago.
Sounds about right. But the soundtrack is, phenomenal. It's definitely one of my favorite soundtracks that I do listen to. And the composer is Francisco Cerda or Cerda, I want to say.
Francisco Cerda.
Cerda? Okay.
Yep.
And yeah, it's great. I'm really stoked that they put it in there. Obviously, if he's from Chile and stuff, then that makes sense. But it is a bit of an obscure one to have amongst all the big Nintendo games and things.
Yeah, it was such a so interesting to see it there, but because even like the indie game that was represented there, Undertale was such a big hit.
Yeah, I mean Undertale was much bigger. Yeah, so yeah, that's surprising, but very, very cool.
So yeah, so this is my excuse to say let's talk about video game music.
Well, I know in this, my closest city, they have done that sort of stuff before, where they've done orchestral performances of. I think they tend to like stick to a game or a series, like they'll do Final Fantasy music, or they'll do Zelda music or something. But I haven't actually been to one, and I should because I know I'd enjoy it. But I think it's a cool. It seems like a way that orchestras can play something that perhaps might appeal to younger audiences, perhaps who don't listen to old classical music. So it seems like a good idea.
Yeah, I also, well, quote unquote, went to Ace Attorney musical, not musical, Ace Attorney like orchestra symphony thingy. Because during the worst part of the pandemic, in Japan, they decided to open up the Ace Attorney Symphony to everyone in the world. And you could buy a ticket for the stream.
That's cool.
It was amazing. Like, it was kind of sad, like seeing the empty seats, but given the situation we were in, quote COVID cough, they kind of like said, "Hey, we're streaming this anyway, so why don't we make like a big thing out of it and have people from all over the world enjoy the music?"
Yeah.
And they accompanied the music like with screenshots, and they said like, "Hey, we're doing this thing anyway, so why don't we have like people from all over the world enjoy the music?" And they had like images and scenes and stuff from the different Ace Attorney games to accompany all that.
Very cool.
And it was chef kiss. Beautiful.
Nice. Well, the upside to that sort of thing as well, it's great for the musicians to be able to actually do some work and earn some money during the pandemic, I imagine. So
yeah, definitely.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
So yeah, that like the whole symphony stuff aside, what are you like your favorite game soundtracks or stuff that you really like?
Well, I'm looking at the moment at my game soundtrack collection because I have all my music on my computer. I have like a little server, but I was looking. I've got all my game soundtracks in a collection, and I've got, not trying to flex, but just looking at how many there are from, because a lot of games just come with a soundtrack. So, why not pull it out and listen to it? And I've currently got like 354 different soundtracks in my game soundtrack collection.
Holy crap.
But one thing I will say about a lot of game soundtracks is that even if they're good in game, they're not really good to listen to outside of the game. Because, some of it's like really gamey, and it's kind of like the Super Mario Brothers soundtrack, as an example, that everyone knows. Like, I like it. I think it's a good soundtrack, but I don't want to listen to it outside of the game because that would annoy the shit out of me. But if I'm playing the game, it's really good. But anyway, I'm just going to go through and pick out some like notable ones, such as there's a composer called Austin Wintory, who I've gotten to know because he's done the soundtrack to a number of games that I really enjoy. And I really enjoy the soundtracks, such as Journey, he did the soundtrack to. He did the soundtrack to the Banner Saga, which I love. And then a few others, like there's a game called Monaco and Soulfjord and that kind of stuff. And he does like more, like he's a composer, like he does orchestral kind of soundtracks. So they're not like electronic or chiptune or anything. They're almost like movie scores and that sort of thing. And well, anyone who's played Journey can understand that soundtrack. But the cool thing about the Banner Saga soundtrack is because it's got a very Viking kind of Scandinavian theme to it. So the soundtrack follows that as well. And there's lots of like Scandinavian choirs and things in that soundtrack, as well as the orchestral music. And it's a lot of fun it's really nice to listen to. It's just kind of nice, almost movie score-esque kind of music. But another of my another of my favorite composers is a guy called, he's a composer. A guy called Chris Remo, who has done a lot of soundtracks for Double Fine. I think he actually works for Double Fine, who is the Tim Schafer, ex-Rob Gilbert studio who made like LucasArts games like Day of the Tentacle and that sort of stuff back in the day. And more recently, they've made games like Broken Age and what's the one with Jack Black? I forget what it's called. Doesn't matter. Chris Remo, anyway, does a lot of their soundtracks, but he also did the soundtrack to Gone Home, which was not by Double Fine at all, but he did that soundtrack. And that is one of my favorite soundtracks of all time, just because I like soundtracks that are very kind of ambient and not shouty and just kind of atmospheric. And perhaps there's not a lot going on, but there's just nice notes that play here and there and set the scene. And I really love the game Gone Home anyway, but the score for it, I like the tracks, but in the game there's a lot of tracks from like punk bands and stuff, but that's not on the soundtrack. But there's like an actual score that kind of scores the game, and that's what Chris Remo did, and it's really, really good. Similarly, and I'll get back to you in a second, Paula. There's two more people I want to mention. One of them is Darren Korb, who anyone who's played a game like Bastion or Transistor or Pyre or what's the other one, Hades, he does all their soundtracks. So all those games, I think, have amazing music, and it's all thanks to a dude called Darren Korb. He's very, very good. My other favorite is another composer who does a lot of classical kind of stuff. I'm trying to find at the moment, but I can't see. She did the soundtrack for Dear Esther. Her name is Jessica Curry. She's also done other games. I can't name any of them right now, but the Dear Esther soundtrack, as much as everyone likes to dunk on that game and hate it, I think even if you don't like the game, the soundtrack is phenomenal. It's just really nice classical music, really, like a lot of violin and orchestral kind of stuff, and there's some really nice themes in there and everything, and some really nice motifs, if you will. And yeah, again, that's the soundtrack I listen to regularly because it's just really nice instrumental background kind of music that I like to listen to while I'm working or just going about my day. So yeah, I've probably got more that I can find while I look through my collection. But what about you, Paula? What stands out most for you?
Okay, so first of all, I have to get it out of the way. I really love the music in the Legend of Zelda series. I have to check real quick who the composer of the later Zelda games are.
Mm-hmm.
The newer Zelda games are because it is different from the old-time Zelda games.
Right.
So if you let me find this real quick.
Yeah.
Oh, so this is actually quite interesting. So I think Koji Kondo was the one who started like making music for Zelda games.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have the Zelda 2 game, The Adventure of Link. And of course, the composer for that one is different, and the work was done in part by Akito Nakatsuka. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, he did a great job on the soundtrack of the game because, like, even though I am unable to save my life to beat this game, the Zelda 2, I have to say the music is quite catchy. So we also have like Asuka Ota, who work on Four Swords Adventures, and also work alongside Koji Kondo for Twilight Princess. Twilight Princess soundtrack is like really pretty, but I have to say the one that is like one of my favorites, besides Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, the Wind Waker has like such upbeat beautiful music. Like the one that is my favorite track, almost of all time probably, is Dragon Roost Island, which I totally recommend anyone who is listening to this podcast listen to. And this actually is a work of four composers, which are Kenta Nagata, Toru Minegishi, Koji Kondo, of course, and Hajime Wakai. I feel like on the I forgot, where is it? Where is Breath of the Wild? Because I'm pretty sure like Koji Kondo didn't do the work for that one. Or did he? No, it doesn't say. Huh. Well, anyway, whoever is responsible for the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom soundtrack, even though it is not something that I would listen on a day-to-day basis, I do listen to it while trying to study, and I need music to concentrate because of how it's more about the nature and the ambience and less about like the upbeat music of it. So what happened in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom is that the music for it is like more, I'm gonna say like broken down and more slow and almost sporadic in a sense, because it has to fit with the tone of the game of how this kingdom who was once flourishing is now in shambles. So, and you are visiting whatever remains of that kingdom. So most of the places have like this kind of like broken apart notes kind of soundtrack with music from nature mixed within. While if you are like in, let's say, Kakariko Village, that is still kind of intact, or Hateno Village, you get like a full, I'm going to say, quote unquote, full theme that is more aligned with what previous Zelda games have done. With that out of the way, I also have a bunch of Otome game soundtracks that I absolutely adore. And I have to say, anything where Mao or Kaori lend their voice, like anything with their voice in is gold. So, for example, Kaori, even though she didn't compose it, I think, Where the fuck is the composer for this? Da, 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 da. Okay, so technically Nakamura Tomomi is the composer for Kafan-tante. Yeah, Kafan-tante. And he did like a fantastic job. Sorry, she did a fantastic job. I have no idea how to like aside from a couple of names in Japanese, I have no idea how to differentiate like male and female names. So
Yeah.
sorry if I misgender anyone. So her alias is Miu, and that's what I'm gonna call her because it is so much shorter than anything. So Miu composed the music for Kafan Chante, and she did a fantastic job on the opening and ending of the game. Especially like the opening, which is Precious Faces, Precious Places. And that is sung by Oda Kaori. And it is like such an upbeat song for such a very, very dark and sad game at some points. But at the end of the day, I don't know, like it gives you comfort. Like you feel like things are gonna be okay. I cannot find, to save my life, the composer for the rest of the music of the game. But I feel like A Phantom Days has one of the most listenable to soundtracks out there because since it is like placed on a coffee shop for like half of the game, a lot of the music tracks are kind of like lofi or like upbeat and relaxing. On the other hand, we have the soundtrack for Code Realized, Guardian of Rebirth. And even though I wouldn't listen to most of the soundtrack on its own because it really has to go like with the story.
Mm-hmm.
Like it really tends like whatever you read with a certain mood. I have to say like I really love the opening song that is called Floatable. This one is sung by Mao. And I have to say, whenever Mao and Kaori work together on the vocals of a song, I am the happiest camper ever. Such examples are the Amnesia Memories / Crowd Later / World soundtracks, but most notably, Pio Fiore with Current, which by the way, I didn't think I would like any other opening more than that one. But I was not Current. What was the name of it? I forgot. Okay, the preferred opening Nocturnal, sorry. But Current, which is the sequel's opening sequence, it has to be like one of my favorite openings like ever made. And of course, partially because I'm such a Mao fangirl and such a Kaori fangirl, so having them together, like singing together in such a powerful manner, just makes me really, really happy.
Nice.
So like I feel like most of the soundtracks that I like the most, like to listen to while I'm working or like doing anything, are from Otome games, and that comes mainly from the fact that like visual novel soundtracks are made to be listened to while you read.
Yeah.
So I feel like that has a lot to do with it. Oh, one Nonotome vocalist I have to really shout out to is Kanato Ito. And she has done a lot of work for the Science Adventure series, most notably Steins Gate and Steins Gate Serial. Like, go listen to Amadeus, go listen to Fatima. Please, her voice is not from this world. Like, I love her so much.
Very cool. I think it's interesting that a lot of the ones you mentioned have vocals on it, because when I think of game soundtracks, I often think of just instrumental stuff.
Yeah, so like for whatever reason, it might have to do like with some anime influence or whatever. I have zero idea. But a lot of games like visual novels in general, and some RPGs made in Japan had an opening sequence, like as if there were like an anime episode or something like that.
Yeah.
So a lot of them do have vocals, and I would just find that amazing. Like,
Oh, it's totally cool. Yeah.
there was a time where I played like so many visual novels and Japanese games like back to back that when I play a game that didn't have an opening soundtrack, like an opening song, it felt weird. I'll leave it out there.
Fair enough. I mean,
So yeah.
Yeah, one of my favorite soundtracks, which has vocals because it's basically an album of its own, is for a game called The Longest Road on Earth, and the artist who did the soundtrack is called I want to say Beicoli, Beicoli. I think they're a French artist, and the whole game is, I loved it. It's a great game. It's fantastic, really excellent game. But it is basically a walking simulator, and there's no audio except the soundtrack. So it better be good, kind of thing. And it is. It's very good.
Yeah, definitely.
And it suits the game perfectly. It's kind of it's almost like the game is 50% the music and 50% the game, as far as what you're experiencing. So it's very important to that game. And there are lyrics and there are songs, and it's not just an instrumental soundtrack, which is what I usually listen to. But this one in particular, for Longest Road on Earth, is really, really good. But otherwise, yeah, I think most, other than Darren Korb, who did like Bastion and all that, there is singing in that, and different songs with vocals. But otherwise, most of the time, I think most of the stuff I listen to is very instrumental.
Yeah, though I have to say, the Persona series tends to have like vocal soundtrack. Now that I think about it, there really is like the modern Persona take, which is kind of interesting because I didn't really think about it until I was asked about it.
Yeah. I mean, well, yeah, until you were talking about vocalists that you really enjoy, it didn't really occur to me that actually most of the soundtracks I listen to don't have vocals. So not that there's anything wrong with it, it just happens to be that way. Yeah, like another one of my favorites ones is for a game called Thomas Was Alone, which was Mike Bithel's first indie game. Same guy who did Subsurface Circular and Quarantine Circular and a couple of other games. But that particular soundtrack, it's very much a chiptune soundtrack, with some electronic kind of orchestral arrangements in there as well, I guess. It's by a guy called David Housden, who I have never heard of before other than that. But it's just it's an uplifting soundtrack. Kind of like that game in itself is very uplifting, I find. But yeah, that's one that I have had on repeat since I got it, basically. So I definitely say that's up there. But there are a couple of other ones I just wanted to mention as well, just to kind of give them a shout out. There's a Disaster Piece, who is a electronic DJ, essentially, like musician anyway. Did the soundtrack for Hyperlight Drifter and Fez. Both soundtracks I really enjoy. They're just like EDM kind of synth wavy music, which I'm a fan of anyway. What's his name? Chris Christodoulou, who did the soundtrack for the Risk of Rain games. Those games are phenomenal for the soundtrack. Very good ones. I know I've discussed this with other people before, like Rick, when we've played Risk of Rain. But yeah, very, very cool soundtracks. Another one was an artist called Life Formed, who did the soundtrack to Tunic most recently. Again, kind of electronic, almost chiptune-y kind of stuff, but just very pleasant sounding. Like they're the kind of soundtracks that are just nice instrumental, but they're not necessarily like totally upbeat, but they kind of make me feel nice when I listen to them. So I like them for that. And the only other one that I do want to mention, which probably is a bit out of left field, is there's a game called Waves, which is an old twin stick shooter. Basically, it's very much like Geometry Wars to play, but kind of updated and a bit more modern. And the soundtrack to that is fantastic. It's kind of short. There's only like 6 tracks, but they are just really cool. Again, electronic kind of chiptune kind of music. But yeah, there's just so many like good ones as well. Like I'm looking over my collection and there's a bunch of good stuff in here. Like the Cryptark soundtrack or the Assemble with Care soundtrack is kind of nice. There's so many good ones but I think the real difference for me is in like what makes a difference between a soundtrack I listen to often and one that I don't is that kind of how invasive is it? And like you say, like soundtracks that are made for visual novels are made to be listened to while you're reading. So it kind of makes sense that you can listen to it while reading or studying or doing some other stuff.
Yeah.
And that's when I tend to, like, if I have to sit at my computer and do something for a long time, that's when I tend to be listening to music the most. And I definitely go for that kind of nice accompaniment kind of music. Whereas, you know, if I'm driving in my car or something, then I want songs that I can sing along to and that kind of stuff. But there's just so many good ones out there. Sorry, go.
It's okay. Like just wanted to throw a couple of more soundtracks over there.
Yeah.
Of course, the Ace Attorney series has amazing soundtrack enough to make a full concert out of it. I also like the piano soundtrack for The Liar Princess and the Blind Prince, which, by the way, I already talked about how this game has a fairy tale aesthetic to it, and the soundtrack just does it justice like super well.
Nice.
And there's a couple more that I'm looking for. The Fire Emblem series has very good soundtrack in general, but I think my favorite has to be like ones for Fire Emblem Echoes, Shadows of Valencia, which is a remake for Gaiden, and the way they did a full overhaul of the music, like I never thought they could make like the original 8-bit sounds and then turn that into like a full orchestra thing, and it's just like so fucking good.
Very nice.
And one more, it's the soundtrack for 13 Sentinels, I Use Dream. Rick, this is your fault.
Yeah. We're all scarred by that.
Yeah, not only it has like stunning visuals, like I don't know, like how they did the sprites because they're like 2D, but they kind of move. And the music, both for the battle sections and for the visual novel sections, it just fits. Let's keep it at that.
Nice.
And I could be talking on and on about the soundtrack, but
yeah,
I don't want to keep everyone here.
I mean, yeah, there are also those soundtracks which are like compilations, like the Hotline Miami soundtrack is very popular because it's basically a compilation of a whole bunch of awesome artists. I really like the modern Doom soundtracks, especially the Mick Gordon one for the 2016 Doom. But again, it's kind of intense, so I don't really listen to it very often. Or like not when I'm like
just leave it.
Yeah, not when I'm like concentrating on writing something or trying to figure something out, you know, do some work and that kind of thing. But yeah, there's just so many. There's also, I don't know if you've ever listened to any of the OC Remix albums that they've done, which are basically fan-made soundtracks, and they've basically done the entire Final Fantasy catalog. They've got a Doom album. I'm sure they've got some Zelda stuff out there. They've basically done like classic games, but it's fans who have recreated the soundtracks into basically bigger and better and more elaborate kind of versions. And so there's a few OC Remix soundtracks that I like to listen to, like a few Final Fantasy ones, and the Doom one's called The Dark Side of Phobos, and that's a really good one. So yeah, I definitely recommend checking them out if you're into video game soundtracks but haven't necessarily heard of OC Remix. It's all free. You can download it from their website. It's fantastic. Yeah.
Is OC Remix?
Yep. I think they're still going. I'd be surprised if it did disappear.
Oh, as in Overclock remix.
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave that.
Yeah, I think especially if you're a fan of Nintendo stuff and those sorts of classic game series, like the first thing that popped up for me when I just looked at the website was a Super Metroid soundtrack. And so, yeah, there's basically people doing modern versions of classic soundtracks. So, like before the modern Doom games, they made a contemporary version of the Doom soundtrack. So, yeah, definitely worth checking out OC Remix or Overclocked Remix. Because, yeah, like I say, it's all free to download and there's so much music there that you could really just listen to it forever and never stop kind of thing.
Mm.
Oh, they've even got Command and Conquer. Yeah, I haven't looked at this for a while. So, yeah, I think for me anyway, I guess the kind of soundtracks I often gravitate to are those kind of more instrumental kind of atmospheric soundtracks as opposed to super intense awesome stuff, which can still be awesome, but isn't like, it's kind of like I really like really heavy metal to listen to, but I don't listen to it all the time because I don't need to be that distracted sometimes. So it's kind of like that. Yeah. But yeah, I really like the idea of live symphony game soundtrack music. So I'm gonna have to check it out sometime next time it's happening near me.
Definitely, and I'll keep an eye out for whatever happens again over here.
But yeah, let's round this puppy up with a bit of a guessing game. Aim of the game to guess the game where Paula's going to quiz me this week. I'm only 4 points behind. Oh, I thought I was 3. I was getting excited, but I'm 4 points behind. So there's a chance I could close the gap. But,
yeah, actually, I'm looking at this one, and I decided to look at the reviews, and there's actually a review by you, and that was kind of interesting. This game in particular, for main story, it is 14 hours and a half.
Okay.
And I'm trying to check which one of these I give you. So the first completion note, this one is for main story, and it took this person 11 hours to get here.
Mm-hmm.
Says at least 2 hours was repeating dates until reading dates I failed.
Go again.
At least 2 hours was repeating dates I failed.
At least 2 hours was repeating dates I failed. So dates. I'm assuming it's like romantic dates, not calendar dates. Maybe it is. I don't know. Well, obviously I don't know. So let me think of a dating game. 11 hours. Dates. I mean, it's not something like House Party.
No.
There's not really dates in that. It's more just, it's a bit wilder than that. I haven't played heaps of dating games from memory. I know I've played some, but repeat dates. It's not Honey Pop, is it?
You're close.
Honey Pop 2?
Yep, it is.
Hey!
I wasn't expecting you to get it so fast.
I love those games.
It's Honey Pop 2 Double Date. The second one that I had for you was Second File Chat Mode Challenge.
Interesting.
I didn't have like a particular hint for 100% because I thought that you might get it from that one. So it took you 13 hours and 1 minute to go through this game. I assume it was a main story kind of thing.
Yeah, it might have been main plus, maybe, but yeah, I don't think it was 100%.
So yeah. Oh my god. So you're really close in the gap. I have to step up my game.
Oh man. See, that's where you never know with some games that you pick, because I really enjoy Honey Pop games. They are awesome. And I don't care what people think about those games. They are so much fun. And that one in particular, I picked as part of our Fantasy Critic League the year that it came out. And I had like a bit of an inside track on it because I'd seen the developer talk about releasing it, but it didn't have any official kind of release date. So I kind of picked it when it was maybe it'll come out, but I'm like, I know it's coming out in like a couple of weeks. So it didn't score as well as I wanted it to, but either way, it was a fun one to pick, but also a fun game to play. So
according to Rick, if I remember correctly, it's like the first puzzle game you can't say you played.
Yeah. I think I've heard him say the same thing, yeah. Because, the match 3 is the best match 3 game you can play. And then there's girls in their underwear, so you don't want to talk about that part.
Yep.
So, but yeah, awesome. Hooray. I was so hoping I'd get 3, and I can't tell you how excited I am that I did. Because now we're 12-11. Paula's ahead by 1 point. Oh, yeah. I'll bask in this close glory for at least a week until next time. But I reckon that about does us for this episode. We've gone on long enough and time to call it a day. As always, thank you everyone for listening, and by all means, let us know game soundtracks you're into, that sort of thing. What should we listen to that we didn't mention?
And while you're down there commenting, why don't you press that subscribe button and give us a like?
Ding, ding, ding.
Sorry.
No, rock on.
Okay, everyone.
Someone's got to say it. But thanks a lot, and we'll see you on the next one.
Have a nice week, everyone. Bye.
Hey everyone, editing Abatage here, just chiming in to let you know that I apologize for any weird audio echoes or anything like that. Had some issues this week because I got myself a new webcam. Didn't realize that it came with a mic equipped and basically was recording very quiet echoes of my audio onto Paula's track. So I've had to try and eliminate it with a fine-tooth comb to get rid of any weird echoes and things. So basically, this is just me saying I'm sorry if it's a bit hard to listen to in points. I think it sounded all right, but, you know, it's hard when you're this close to it and you're listening to it back and you're going, could be better. But, yeah, it'll only improve in the future, I reckon. So thanks for bearing with me. And this is Editing Josh out. See you on the next one.